Hello, this is Eric
Hey,
Bryant.
Eric.
I'm excited to have with me Naeem Fazal, old friend, pastor at Mosaic Charlotte, and now author of a new book called Ex-Muslim. How you doing, Naeem?
I'm doing great, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, I'm very excited about your book and very grateful for you and your publisher willing to give away several free copies to those who go to my website and read my newsletter, ericbryant.org. But tell us a little bit about how this book came to be. I mean, this is kind of a hot topic. I mean, it's your story. You are an ex-Muslim, but in light of the world in which we live, was there any fear of sharing your story? I mean, there's a lot of things that go out about the Muslim world and sharing your story. Why now, and why through your book here?
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, though. I came to the U.S. in 1992, and I'm actually Pakistani. So grew up in a Sunni Muslim Pakistani family. But my mom and dad migrated to Kuwait, and that's where I was born. And so I grew up in a Arab culture with the subculture of Pakistan in my home. So I grew up speaking different languages, and so um, I came to the U.S. Right after the Gulf War in 1992. Survived the Gulf War, and I had no idea what God had in mind. I mean, I was comfortable being a Muslim. Didn't want to do anything about that. I didn't want to change it. And so this book really is about what God did. I mean, He transformed my life, my all my siblings now. So all of my siblings are Christians.
Wow.
Mom and dad are still Muslim. So it's a story that's taken quite some time to be in the making because it's not something that I've learned, over a short period of time. I've just seen God do some amazing things. So it seems like the perfect time to do it, and writing a book about how God pursues us and He goes to any and every avenue to reach us. And so I'm just excited to be able to share it.
Well, I've loved your story ever since I've met you, and of course enjoyed not only getting to know you and Ashley and your family, and seeing the amazing things you guys are doing there in Charlotte, North Carolina at Mosaic, but just maybe give us a glimpse of your story. I mean, the subtitle says how one daring prayer to Jesus changed your life. Tell us kind of how that happened. That is a big switch.
It is. It is. It started with my brother being accepted to a college in the U.S. So from Kuwait, imagine a Pakistani guy gets accepted to a college. We're excited. We're pumped about it. And but the college that he got accepted to was called Spartanburg Methodist University in Spartanburg. And so we didn't know what Methodist meant, and so we were just excited for him to go. So we're like, great. So we basically sent him off, and that started something. He had an encounter with Jesus, and he came back the next year and told me about it, and some of my brothers, my brother and sister, and I reacted. I mean, it was pretty violent. I couldn't believe what he was saying. He was gonna tell mom and dad about it. He was so convinced about Jesus and not being a Muslim anymore. I grabbed him by the neck and threatened to kill him. I mean, it
Hmm.
was really rough. In fact, it got so intense that he did not brother a nutcase. It's over. And while he was in the States, that's next year is when Iraq invaded Kuwait, and so we were stuck there in Kuwait. We decided to stay there throughout the uh, uh, invasion and the liberation, And so in 1992 is when I got a chance to, in fact, leave the country. And the way we did this is my whole family got a tourist visa to come to the U.S., and I was the only guy who came. And so the goal was to figure out if I could actually stay in the States and go get into college. And so I came here knowing that my brother was this Christian freak. Mom and Dad did not know. We didn't tell them because we didn't want them to not give us a chance to come to the U.S. And so I was just going to do my thing, you know. And he invited me to come to FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and the collegiate group. And I didn't know anybody. I mean, I had left everything. There are some friends of mine I hadn't talked to after the war. I mean, the war was devastating, and so we lost a lot of stuff as well. And so, anyways, I wanted to start anew. And so I thought I'll just meet some people, and he assured me there were going to be girls there. So I was like, hey, sign me up, I'm coming. And so that's when I first heard of the gospel, and that's when I heard about this idea that you could in fact just pray to this God who is in fact your Father, who sent His Son Jesus to die for you and forever make a way for you, so you don't have to be religious in terms of you don't have to go through rituals and ceremony like all the other religions do. And I understood that. I just thought the idea of it was crazy. It was just, it was too out there yet too simple. And so that's when my brother was challenged me to just ask if this was real. Ask Jesus if this was real, and ask God to reveal Himself to me. And in fact, I made fun of him. I did. I go into detail about how I made fun of my brother because I mean, think about the idea that the God of the universe is going to, stop and listen to you. It's like, and so I did it. One night after FCA, while they were praying, I looked up and I just said this crazy prayer of, God, if you're out there, if you're real, if this is even half true, I want to know. But I don't think this is true, and I think I'm talking to myself. Because Eric, the thing is, I was used to talking to God in a different language. Allah is not bilingual. In one sense, like you can only pray to Him in Arabic. It doesn't count if it's in English or in Spanish or in French. Everybody has to pray in Arabic, and so.
Right, and the Quran's in Arabic. I mean, it's very much rooted in that heritage.
Yeah, and so it was just so foreign to me. So my prayer was sincere, but yet it was even cynical. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
cynical,
sure.
Yeah, But then 3 nights later, though, everything changed. I mean, that's when stuff just got real. And that's where the story gets really, in one sense, supernatural. Yeah.
Well, and I have other friends that have stepped out of Islam and into following Jesus, and you do hear a lot of supernatural stories, and I love what you said earlier, that God is pursuing us, and that for those of us who have faith, to remember that He's pursuing the people around us, and so we're just entering into their story. And for those who are not yet following Jesus, to just consider that He is real, and like you, kind of pray a skeptical, cynical prayer. For those who are unfamiliar with Islam, I mean, we hear a lot about the worst of Islam, ISIS and things like that. People might even wonder if your life has been threatened. You hear that in the news. Tell us maybe your experience with Islam, and maybe help those who don't understand Islam and get confused with Islam versus ISIS, or is there a difference? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So Islam is complicated, to say the least. Most of what you see in practical Islam doesn't come directly from the Quran. It in fact comes from the Hadiths. And the Hadiths are these sayings of Prophet Muhammad that people overheard him say. So there's secondhand information, you know, and in fact, hadiths start with so and so heard so and so, you know, so and so heard Prophet Muhammad say, and then, you know, you need to do this, and that's what they do. So what you see in even in culture, in the Arab culture or the Muslim culture, with the in terms of clothing and fashion, it's very much rooted in the hadiths.
Mm.
The Quran is a poetic book text, and so there are it is confusing. Most Arabs or most Muslims have not read it. They can recite it. I mean, they grow up or they early on. I remember having to learn chapters of and just be able to recite it, and I did. But trying to really understand what it was saying is different. The I think, you know, when I look at the Quran and then now that I teach the scriptures, I realize that, you know, a very simple way of understanding the Quran is that there are a lot of things similar in terms of the story of Jesus and some of the Old Testament characters. The Quran has passages in there that are extremely violent, um, and very black and white. You know, things like just kill them all and do this and do that and extreme. But so does the Old Testament. You know, so does the Old Testament. So when you talk to a Muslim, he'll look and say, well, your Old Testament says this. You know, wipe out all the Canaanites or the Amorites. You know, well, what about this? And so the Quran, the religion itself is, I believe, a very passionate one. Um, I believe it's a it it it's governed by the fear of Allah, number one, uh, and because of that fear of Allah, people live a certain way, and so everything is based off of the filter of God is the fear. For example, the filter of the New Testament and the Scriptures is love, and so God loves humanity. And so when you say, when you've probably heard people say, "Hey, don't do this for the love of God. Don't do this and this."
Mm-hmm.
Well, that saying exists in the Muslim world, but it's not the love of God. It says, "For the fear of Allah, don't do this and this."
Mm.
And so their lives are based off of that fear, and whatever, you know, emotion, secondary emotions, fear causes. That's how they translate the worldview that they live in. And so that's why it's easier for some people to justify killing, um, because there is a God out there that needs to be feared, a God out there that's angry, um, and that He's merciful, but yet He's very strict. He's a strict God, um, and so you'll see these emotions take place. So sometimes things like violence and even genocide is justified. But the majority of Muslims are just religious people, moral people who, in fact, fear Allah, and that's why they're trying to be nice. I mean,
Mm.
they have this, they have the fear going the opposite direction, um, and so um, most Muslims are not representative of ISIS. See, being a Muslim in a Muslim country, being occupied by another Muslim country, so being a Pakistani, living in Kuwait, then having Iraq invade and kill all of, or most of the Kuwaiti soldiers and trying to take over the entire country, kill all the family. I've seen Muslims kill Muslims in the name of Allah.
Right.
So a lot of these jihadists or ISIS, they say it's the name of under the name of Allah, but it's not really true. It's really they're using something that they know that will strike fear in people's hearts, and they're justified, and so um, they're they're um, they're I guess uh, desire for power and greed is masked by morality and the fear of Allah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well,
And
what I want to do is encourage people to go to your website. It's just your name and Naeem Fazal, NaeemFazal.com, and encourage you to just take a look at what Naeem is up to, what he's doing. And one last question, Naeem. Tell us, what is your hope? Why would someone pick up your book? What do you hope they take away reading your new book, Ex-Muslim?
um, I came to faith because Jesus showed up, basically showed up in my room. And I talk about it in detail of how exactly it happened. And he radically changed my life, repurposed it, gave me more than forgiveness, gave me a future. And so I would hope that people would read this book and be so inspired and feel so full of faith that the God that they either know about or they're trying to figure out is a God who loves them so much that believes in them more than anybody else will, that wants to give them access to more power than they ever thought, more influence than they ever thought, and that he's a supernatural God. And so I hope the book gives people a lot of faith. It builds people's faith up to see that truly God's mission is to pursue the hearts of men. I
Mm.
mean, there are wars and rumors of wars in this world, but there is a supernatural war. There is a spiritual war going on, and the whole cause of the war is for the souls of men. It's for the hearts of people. There is no war, spiritual war for territory. There is no war going on because Satan wants the earth, or it's not about geography. It's really about people. What are the cause of it?
Right.
And so I just hope that people understand that there's a God who supernaturally is after them and pursues them, and they would seek out this God, and that he would show them how big he is.
Well, I love what you said. I think this book can really help inspire people grow in their faith, whether they've walked with God for a long time or they're exploring the possibility. So, Naeem, thanks so much for your friendship. Thanks so much for all that you do. And thank you now for this new book, Ex-Muslim. Keep up the great work.
Oh man, thank you so much, Eric. As always, man, you look sexy.
All right, take care, Naeem.
All right, see ya.
Bye.